Great day, everyone. It feels great to be presenting to all of you today on my talk, The Laws of Nature and the Rise of Pandemic, Protecting Human and Planetary Health. Before I give my talk, I'd like to thank the Immaculate Heart of Mary Academy for inviting me for your science and math celebration. Thank you also to all the administrators and also the teachers, and as well as the students who will be listening to my talk today. So, with the recent pandemic, I think that we have really changed a lot, particularly on our habits and also all the activities that we have done. Although there are some changes, it is important to consider that we have to continue our learning, particularly to our students who are also considered to be instrumental to the success of whatever things that we will do, especially in the field of science. So for today, I'll be giving my talk, which will focus on the importance of understanding biodiversity and also its connection to the recent pandemic and how humanity can also help when it comes to identifying their role in terms of biodiversity and also COVID-19. As of speaking, the world is in the grips of global pandemic, the like of which has never been seen before. The COVID-19 has also swept through countries and even continents that has caused untold human suffering, social and even social upheaval, and also economic damage. But while the spread of the current crisis is unprecedented, the new coronavirus follows a number of diseases that have emerged in recent decades, and that includes Ebola, AIDS, SARS, avian influenza, and even swine flu, all originated in animals. And there is increasing evidence that humanity's overexploitation of nature is one of the factors behind the spread of the new disease. So for my talk today, I'll be presenting to you the contents of which this will help you or this will guide you when it comes to the flow of my presentation. And these particular contents are very essential for you also to identify the specific origin, the causes, and also some of the recent breakthroughs and also specific understanding that are being done in order to help us in understanding the pandemic. So we have an introduction and then to be followed by public enemy number one, which is the focus on the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. Then we also have short discussion regarding the origin of the virus. Also, we have viruses and its characteristics and structures. We also have issues or topics from animals to humans, zoonoses and their impact, going to emerging diseases, waiting for the big one, wild trafficking, bushmeat and pandemics, ecosystem damage and human health risks, ecosystem change and the spread of disease. We also have case studies which will also help us understand the concept of pandemic before and how do we connect it today. And from there, what do we do and also our way forward in order to help solve this particular issue. So if you're going to look at it carefully, the concept of climate change and also social impact as well as host and pathogen transmissions are very important when it comes to the understanding of how diseases are being spread. So in particular, these particular viruses have emerged for the past decades and continue to spread in different parts of the world. And this could be transmitted from a primary even to a secondary and a tertiary host, with also the presence of climatic conditions which are important in terms of exacerbating specific effects of the virus itself. And then from there, we can also identify the specific hosts, pathogens, and also the transmission, which will lead now to infectious diseases. And all these diseases could either be vector-borne, waterborne, foodborne, airborne, and also other means. Human activities have significantly altered three-quarters of the land and even two-thirds of the ocean, changing the planet to such an extent as to determine the birth of a new era, which is the Anthropocene era. Changes in land use that bring wildlife, livestock, and humans into closer contact with each other facilitate the spread of diseases, including new strains of bacteria and viruses. Meanwhile, illegal and uncontrollable trade of live wild animals creates dangerous opportunities for contact between humans and the diseases these creatures carry. It is no coincidence that many recent outbreaks have originated in markets that sell a mix of wild and domestic mammals, birds, reptiles, creating the conditions for the development of old and also the new zoonoses, infectious diseases that can be transmitted from animals to humans. So as you can see, you can really see that there is a specific connection between humans and also its specific disturbances or mediated activities to the biodiversity of our environment. So if we are going to see coronavirus, one of our public enemy is considered to be the virus in itself. Coronaviruses are considered to be a large family of viruses widespread in many animal species, including humans. While many have no negative effects, they can use illnesses ranging from the common cold to more serious diseases such as the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome known as MERS, which first appeared in Saudi Arabia in 2012, and also the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, or also known as SARS, which emerged in Guangdong province in southern China in 2002. Now, the virus responsible for the current pandemic is a new strain that has never been before seen by humanity. According to the World Health Organization, they have given the disease the official name COVID-19, short for Coronavirus Disease 2019, while the International Committee on Taxonomy of Viruses has assigned the official name SARS-CoV-2, which is the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, to the virus that causes the disease. This name was chosen because the virus is genetically related to the coronavirus responsible for the SARS outbreak. While related, the two viruses differ in two fundamental characteristics. SARS-CoV-2 has a lower mortality rate but is more contagious than SARS. The new coronavirus can cause mild symptoms such as cold, sore throat, cough, and fever, or more severe symptoms such as pneumonia, severe acute respiratory syndrome, and kidney failure. While most of these infected will recover, many require hospital treatment, threatening to overwhelm health services. And for a minority, the complications can be fatal, where many thousands of lives have already been lost. So the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak appears to have originated in large animal markets in Wuhan, particularly in the Chinese province of Hubei in December 2019. But the question now is, where do these new viruses come from? The outbreak among humans of viruses previously circulating only in the animal world is a phenomenon known as spillover. This is thought to be at the origin of the new coronavirus, and the transmission of viruses between animals and humans has been observed in the recent past. In 2012, a virus possibly originating in bats adapted to domesticate or dromedaries and subsequently to people, causing the MERS epidemic in the Arabian Peninsula. SARS appeared in a Chinese market that sold Asian palm civets, or also known as the Paradoxus hermaphroditus. which appear to have contracted a similar virus from bats. Every time a virus infects a host, always remember that it can mix its genetic heritage with the other viruses present in the host, and that includes influenza viruses, or they have the capability to rapidly mutate. Then it reproduces at the expense of the cell to infect new species. By analyzing the data, particularly the RNA and the DNA of the virus itself, it can possibly um, help us trace its passage through different species. I know that we are still uncertain which animal species may have acted as the intermediate hosts in the case of SARS-CoV-2, as the city market of Wuhan sells and even slaughters on-site live wild and domestic birds and mammals of many species. Recent studies highlight the similarities between SARS-CoV-2 and coronavirus found in some species of bats belonging to the genus Rhinolophus, which could have constituted the natural reservoir for the virus. These bats are abundant and wildly present in southern China and also throughout Asia, the Middle East, even Africa and Europe. Bats carry many viruses which could have co-evolved during their long evolutionary history and which they spread and contract readily through the ability to fly long distances and also their large aggregations, and that could even be up to million individuals in one site. In here, as you can see, research by the Campus Biomedical University of Rome based on this study suggests that the current pandemic may have originated from bats sold live and slaughtered in China, or particularly in their Chinese markets, and also additional research have identified that high correspondence between human SARS-CoV-2 and also particularly its genome and the coronavirus genome found in a bat in the Chinese province of Wuhan, particularly Yunnan, through differences in the genetic sequence, suggesting that the bats could have passed through an intermediate host before reaching human beings. Similarities have also found between SARS-CoV-2 and coronavirus carried by Malayan pangolins or the Manis javanica. Pangolins are highly sought for their scales, and unfortunately, they are used for traditional Asian medicine as well as their meat, which is considered to be a delicacy in some parts of Asia and also African continents or African communities. As a result, they have become the most trafficked animal in the world, with these high levels of trade threatening their survival. International trade in pangolins has never been illegal since 2016, but the trade has by no means ceased. However, measures such as those recently adopted by China to restrict the consumption of wild animals could in part limit demand, which is also good to know now that they have been controlling now the consumption of animals, particularly civet, in the areas of China. While we do not know yet the conclusive evidence about the source and path of SARS-CoV-2 infection, it is likely that the origin of this new virus is in part linked to trade of live wild animals and their body parts. This often illegal or uncontrolled practice is a vehicle for spreading old and new zoonoses, increasing the risk of pandemics with enormous health, social, and even economic impacts. Viruses, on the other hand, are completely incredible physical entities, especially genetic material coated with a protein capsule. So their origin is considered to be unclear because there have been discussions that these viruses are considered to be entities which were found in bodies of water or even in ice and were kept there for millions of years. And because of climate change and also the change when it comes to the hotness of our environment, there has been rampant melting of the ice resulting to the liberation of these viruses. But also in particular, if we talk about the endosymbiotic theory by Lynn Margulis, a famous evolutionary biologist, she was able to emphasize that viruses are actually non-living entities which are considered to be debris of bacteria. So, however, these particular viruses are considered to be somewhat like real forms once they're able to enter a host. It is because every time that they enter a host cell, they would require the DNA, which could either be plant, animal, and fungi, or even the bacteria, and they have the capability to possess some, but not all, the characteristics of other living organisms, making viruses considered as organisms, but not at all. However, at an ecological level, viruses perform an essential task, regulating the populations of host species and at the same time ensuring their balance within ecosystems. So depending on the type of genetic material that they can contain, viruses can be distinguished from being DNA or an RNA respectively of double or single strand nucleic acid. And in particular, SARS-CoV-2 is an RNA virus, one of the least 158 known to infect humans. Other particularly dangerous RNA viruses, including HIV, and then we also have SARS, Hendra, Nipah, and also the MERS. Mainly shared among mammals and sometimes birds, RNA viruses rapidly mutate, meaning they have the capability to evolve, adapt to the new host, and develop resistance to drugs. This is especially the case when a cell is infected with different viruses which exchange their genetic material, giving rise now to a new genetic virus. Like all other organisms, these cellular entities also try to maximize their survival and ability to reproduce. A virus in equilibrium with its species through which it has evolved does not cause excessive fatalities amongst that species. However, as the death of the host would most often mean the death also of the virus itself. When there is a substantial change in the virus and it becomes uh, able to infect a new species, this balance now then becomes lost. In the new host species, the initial rates of fatality are likely to be much higher until an equilibrium between the pathogen and also the host species is eventually reached. So far, if we talk about the pathway of the epidemics, there are different factors or ways how the pandemic or even the epidemic continues to occur. That is in particular deforestation, species collecting and trafficking, animal markets, and also the risk of zoonosis. So a zoonosis is considered to be any disease or infection transmitted to humans from other animals. And zoonotic diseases include a diverse group of infections which can be caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, and other organisms or abnormal protein agents, also known as prions. Zoonoses are definitely numerous. The World Health Organization even recorded over 200, and their study constitutes one of the areas of greatest interest in human and veterinary medicine. Rabies, leptospirosis, anthrax, SARS, MERS, yellow fever, dengue, HIV, Ebola, chikungunya, and coronavirus are all considered to be zoonoses or zoonotic in nature due to the fact that these are viruses can be transmitted from a primary host, which could be an animal, to a secondary host or even to a tertiary host, which are all considered to be living organisms or particularly animals. So far, it is malaria, which is carried by mosquitoes, which is responsible for more than 400,000 of deaths and even direct costs of more than US a total of 12 million US dollars every year. Then we also have the bubonic plague, which happened before, caused by Yersinia pestis, which is a bacterium that was transmitted to our species by fleas or rats or even rodents in the Middle Ages, which killed a third of the European population. So we can see here that we have already experienced numerous pandemics, but this particular pandemic is considered to be new to us, which is the coronavirus, due to the fact that it is new when it comes to the record of science. Now we also have the concept of spillover events, wherein, as with viruses, the moment that when a pathogen passes from one host species to another, then we call it now spillover. This transmission can take place by direct contact, and in particular, other organisms are able to cause this particular disease. And these are the most dangerous for humans, and the current crisis shows how quickly epidemics can spread in an increasingly globalized and connected world to become pandemic. So what are the specific types of emerging diseases and what causes them particularly? So we have three-quarters of human diseases known to date come from animals, and 60% are considered to be emerging diseases that have been transmitted by wild animals. So zoonoses each year can cause around 1 billion cases of disease and millions of deaths, and this could cause incalculable human consequences. So far, what do we know about the effects of anthropogenic land use? So in particular, in the study of Ghebreyesus et al. 2014, these diseases have already caused heavy socio-economic impact, contributing to enduring poverty in some regions. In particular, we consider it as a big global economic burden for European countries, which can be seen in the figure, which is in maroon color. And usually, based also on the study, a total of around $80 billion over 12 years have been already lost, caused by six zoonotic diseases. Actually, less is well known when it comes to zoonoses, which carry also heavy costs because there are only few studies being conducted on that. However, these viral, bacterial, or fungal outbreaks of animal origin transmitted to human through food, and also including studies in Salmonella and Campylobacter, are also some of the specific studies which are being focused right now by scientists. So for these emerging diseases, it is important to know that the production and large-scale use of antibiotics and vaccines have already been done. However, however, these particular antibiotic diseases are considered to be hard to cure due to the fact that climate change and other factors such as human activities are causing also immediate changes on these viruses and bacteria, causing it for other antibiotics and antiviral drugs to have difficulty when it comes to its effectivity. According to the World Health Organization, emerging diseases are those that appear to be first time in a certain population, or that they were already present, but we see a rapid response, or increase rather, in the number of geographical spread. An emerging disease may now involve the following. It could be a known infectious agent appearing in a new geographical area. It could also be a known infectious agent or close to relative appearing to be a new species, and also an unknown infectious agent classified for the first time. So what are some of the prioritization for zoonosis and identification for network management? So these unprecedented rate and are actually at the center of intense research, while there are also catastrophic proportions that could lead to specific problems when it comes to the study. Globalization with other ever-growing movement of people and goods, And even compounds and growing human impact on ecosystems are continuously being studied. This enables now the widespread diffusion of both emerging diseases, the old ones that were believed to be under control. So some of we considered as the unregulated activities that are being done includes unregulated trade in wildlife animals. We also have bushmeat consumption and continues to grow. We also have wild animals of all kinds are being trafficked, and also including China recent ban on eating wild animals, and also that are being captured and bred in captivity are some of the issues that are being studied right now. And also, when we talk about the unregulated trade in wild animals and direct contact with animal parts, this is also considered to be a pressing issue due to the fact that it can lead to the onset and contribute to the spread of serious zoonoses. And also, in particular, for bushmeat consumption, it is also important to note that bushmeat consumption is growing dramatically in many parts of the world, and it can be an important source of nutrition for low-income countries and food-secure households in some forest and rural areas, which could also be the main cause of the spread of specific diseases. Also, for wild animals and all kinds are being trafficked along commercial routes that connect continents and distant countries. This is also a very pressing issue considering that in rural areas, it is the lower income households that consume more bushmeat. And then this becomes also the reason why some African and Asian diaspora communities also consume bushmeat, supporting a lucrative illegal international market. Like also for wild animals or for those that are captured or bred in captivity, this also becomes the reason why there should be proper understanding when it comes to understanding the trading mechanism, because this will be important as to identify what particular areas are doing this kind of practice. So for the ecosystem damage, we have so many damages that are being brought about by the disturbances by humans to COVID-19 cases. And all of these are definitely very important to be understood so that we can also identify some specific measures that we can conduct in order to control the spread of the disease. So what are these particular changes? In particular, the destruction of our environment, particularly on not valuing ecological services, crop and timber exports, government policies, poverty, population growth, or even secondary causes including logging, tree plantation, and also even fires are some of the causes which continue now to spread the virus itself. Therefore, it is really important that we have to take care of our environment and also avoid the continuity of deforestation, as this would destroy now the habitats of our animals. Based also on specific studies, these are some of the top leading diseases which have the potential impact relating now to ecological changes. Also, when it comes to these particular diseases, some of the most important concerns include now the effects of agriculture and malaria, ticks and wildlife and habitat destruction, malaria and plant diversity, and also schistomiasis, and also the disappearance of predators are important factors that we need to consider now. Also, some of the leading problems when it comes to the disturbance of biodiversity by human activities includes hantaviruses and biodiversity, wherein this is considered to be a case wherein specific viruses can be present also in rats or even in rodents, which could be transmitted now to humans. Then we also have cases on the disappearances of vultures, Nipah virus, and also the increase of viruses because of these activities. Now, because of these particular activities that are being done, which cause now the spread of these diseases, we also have to understand that in order to control or prevent these zoonoses, we have now attempted to reduce populations of host or vector species, and these drastic measures have been employed, including the unbridged use of insecticides and at the same time killing livestock. And these particular interventions have several limitations, particularly the unexpected changes in the ecology of populations, negative and unexpected consequences of activities. We also have impact of non-target species, its resistance acquired by insects and other vectors, and also the socio-economic impacts which are important to be taken into consideration. So are these efforts enough when it comes to controlling the spread of the disease? Yes, but probably it's also a no. That's why, what particular things do we have to do in order to move forward in this particular pandemic, and what lessons should we consider? First is, I know that there is a specific challenge that we are meeting today, but we also have to consider that sustainability itself, meaning the capability to make our resources available not just today, but also in the future, is important because sustainability measures are important so that other generations will also experience the things that we are experiencing now. These conservation efforts, I believe, would include, of course, the collaboration of different fields, of different expertise, so that we can work together in terms of looking for solutions regarding zoonotic diseases. Although money is important when it comes to funding agencies and funding different organizations when it comes to the vaccine itself, we also have to focus when it comes to conservation efforts, not just to the government, but at the same time to scientists and also other fields, which would help when it comes to solving this particular issue. And also, the importance of providing education for our students, particularly in the field of science, would help us stop the problem when it comes to ignorance of the concept of ecosystem. So it is important that we have to educate the minds of our generation today, because once you give them the opportunity to learn, to think, and also to understand the concept of biodiversity and ecosystem, this will help us when it comes to solving the problem itself. So some of the most important activities that we need to do includes now ex situ conservations, wherein we establish specific gardens which would help us understand the behavior and the mechanism of plants. Also, it is important that we have to focus on new techniques when it comes to identifying the origin of our vectors, which includes now the ecology of environmental DNA, wherein we identify now specific debris of animals which could be carrier of the disease by using now DNA technology. We also have the establishment of ex situ conservation, such as the Manila Zoo, are considered to be protected areas, and therefore we should also serve and continue helping these particular zoos in order to save our animals. Another thing is we also have to focus on seed banking techniques, seed banking mechanisms, or cryopreservations, which would help us in terms of analyzing and understanding plants which have potential in helping our environment. Also, there's a need to understand biodiversity hotspots, where these areas are considered to be areas which are prone to specific vulnerability of our animals. So we also have a need to focus on corridors, which would also help provide linkage and connectivity of our different animals and different organisms. Rainforestation technique is also a good technique, wherein we allow now the harmonious existence of various organisms and at the same time hinder deforestation in these particular habitats. Also, reserve establishments are very important because this will also identify areas of major concern, particularly on the existence of our endemic species. Other factors that we also have to consider is the presence of edges, which creates a demarcation line or a limitation between our animals and our living organisms. Other conservation techniques are also important when it comes to the continuity of preserving our animal species in various parts. So I know that the potential solution really lies when it comes to conserving our environment and also collaborating with different people around the world. In this way, we can help in providing solutions regarding our problems. Also, it is important that we need to consistently provide collaborations to universities, to academics, especially in schools, to other organizations outside the Philippines or even within the Philippines, because this will help us in dwelling more on the issues, particularly on biodiversity. I know that we continue to look forward to a better days ahead for each one of us. But let us also consider this particular line that the local community support is crucial for the success of any conservation effort. I know that all species have a right to exist regardless of their ability to benefit humans, but we also have to understand that each one of us is given the opportunity to think, and therefore we should always put in mind the importance of sustainability. So let's heed the call together, conserve biodiversity, and save the lives, not just only the lives of the people, the lives of humans, but the lives of all forms of living organisms. So thank you so much once again, and I hope that you learned a lot from my discussion today, and I hope that you'll be able to understand now the importance of connecting now biodiversity to the recent pandemic. I hope that you will instill into your minds the importance of understanding biodiversity as whole and also as an important program in the understanding of what's happening nowadays. So again, thank you so much, and I hope to be able to see all of you soon. God bless everyone.